We now continue with the seventh Mishnah in the fifth Perek of Pirkei Avot, which starts off now a couple of Mishnayot that focus on the number 7, as opposed to the previous Mishnayot, which were focused on the number 10. The seventh Mishnah starts like this. Shiva dvarim bagolem v'shiva bechacham. There are 7 things that apply to a golem and 7 by a chacham. A golem, hard to translate literally, it refers to a kind of person who, while they've achieved certain excellence in attaining wisdom and knowledge, they're still lacking insofar as they've applied it to themselves in their perfection. Whereas a chacham reflects somebody who is a totally well-rounded, wise individual, that they've applied their wisdom not just in their intellectual life, but in their ethical and emotional perfection as well. And the Mishnah is going to list 7 differences between the golem and the chacham. Chacham eino medaber b'fnei mishehu gadol mimenu b'chochma u'b'minyan. A wise person does not speak in front of anyone who is greater than him, either in wisdom or in numbers. Meaning, if the person realizes that he's in the presence of people or an individual who are greater than him, he won't speak. He has the humility to hold back. Ve'eino nichnas letoch divrei chavero. He doesn't go into the middle of his friend's words, meaning he won't interrupt. He'll wait there patiently until his friend finishes talking. Ve'eno nivhal lehashiv. He's not quick to respond. He thinks out patiently before he responds to the person who's speaking to him. Shoel ka'inyan u'meishiv kahalacha. He asks according to the topic that they're in. He won't ask a tangential question that's unrelated. U'meishiv kahalacha. And he also answers when he's asked a question with things that are practical and relevant to the halacha, to the law. He doesn't just speak in theoretical terms just to show his great intellectual abilities. Ve'omer al rishon rishon v'acharon acharon. He responds to things in the order they were presented, on the first thing first and on the last thing last. He doesn't just put it in the order that he wants to present it. Ve'al ma shelo shama omer lo shamati. On what he hasn't heard, he will say, I haven't heard it. And the commentators explain that he won't try to push his own opinion by saying that I heard it from somebody greater than me, and then give it therefore more weight and more authority. He has the humility to say, I have not heard this from anybody else, but on my own, according to my humble opinion, this is the way it should be. And finally, umodeh al ha'emet. He agrees, he can concede to the truth, meaning that if somebody shows him that he is wrong, he is willing to concede the point and say that he is wrong. He acknowledges the truth, whatever it is. Of course, all of these things reflect not the intellectual greatness of the chacham, but rather the way that the wisdom has been applied to his own personality. And that really reflects what makes a person a chacham, as opposed to what we have here at the end of the Mishnah, v'chilufeihen bagolem. Their opposites are found in somebody who is a golem, somebody who has not achieved a high level of perfection and relationship with God. We continue now to the next 2 Mishnayot, Mishnah Chet and Mishnah Tet. In these Mishnayot, we are dealing with, again, 7 things. And here, the Mishnah focuses on the theme of midah keneged midah. That when God administers a punishment, it is done in a way where it's commensurate with the crime which it is, I shouldn't say commensurate, it's done in a way where it reflects the crime that was committed. It's a method of teaching about what was committed. Shiva minei puraniyot bayin leolam al shiva gufei avera. 7 types of punishments are brought to the world on 7 types of sins, 7 sins that are committed. And the commentators explain, according to some opinions, this is only referring to sins that are committed by the community at large. This is not referring to individuals. The first case in the Mishnah, miksatan me'asrin u'miksatan einan me'asrin. Some of the community separates ma'aser, which refers to the obligation to tithe, to take off 1/10 of the field, to give to Leviyim, and to give to, some cases, to Aniyim, to poor people. Truma also, where you have to give a certain percentage to the Kohanim. So some people are separating off from their produce and giving to these and fulfilling these obligations. And some of them are not doing this. Rav shel batzorah ba'ah. In this case, a famine of a drought will come. There'll be a drought, so it will cause that there will be a lack of produce in the field. Mikzatan re'evim, so that some people will end up hungry. Mikzatan sveim, but yet some will be able to be satisfied. Of course, here we see simply the midah k'neged midah, where people are not relating to their food correctly, so there's going to be a punishment that deals with food. Gamru shelo le'aser. If they finished, meaning it's complete in the community, that they do not want to separate and give from their produce and give fulfill their obligations of what they're supposed to give. Rav shel mihuma vishel batzorepa. The famine becomes one of mihuma. Mihuma literally means to be like pandemonium, to be overwhelmed. And it means to say is could be through a war, where people are forcing them, where let's say soldiers are coming into the city so that they're either taking all the food or they don't allow you to produce. In addition, v'shel b'tzora, and there will also be a drought that will come, and this will further make the situation more difficult. V'shelo litel et challah, for those who don't separate challah, which refers to, of course, when a person is baking dough, so they have to separate a certain amount off for the kohanim. Rav shel klaya ba'a. In that situation, there will be a famine where it's utter destruction. Klaya means to be totally destroyed. Dever ba'leolam, a plague of pestilence, which refers to an epidemic. It's an epidemic disease where it affects a lot of people. That comes to the world. Al mitot ha'amurot b'Torah shelo nimseru lebeitin, where there is death, a death penalty that's said in the Torah, where it's supposed to be a death penalty, but it wasn't given over to Beit Din, where Beit Din can't enforce it. So, for example, there are a lot of rules where it makes it very difficult for a Beit Din, for a Jewish court, to administer the death penalty. And in those situations where the person really deserves it, but the court can't administer it, so that's an example of where Dever Ba'al Olam, that's where the plague will come. Ve'al perot shviyit, in addition to the fruit of shviyit, there are a lot of restrictions on fruits that are grown in the 7th year of Shemitah, which is coming upon us in the next year. And when those aren't kept, they're violated, that's another reason for this plague. Cherev ba'al olam, okay, cherev literally means sword. War comes to the world, to society. Al inui hadin literally means afflicting the law. Here it refers to, the commentators explain, where the judges know what the law is, but they do not enforce it. They delay in administering the law and in giving a verdict. Ve'al ivut hadin, and on distortion of the law, where the judges are not administering the law and giving the proper verdicts. Ve'al hamorim ba'Torah shelo k'halacha, and on those who teach. Morim is literally to teach Torah not according to the halacha. They're teaching it the wrong way. The next Mishnah continues. Chaya ra'a ba'al olam, right? Evil, bad animals come to the world, right? They attack, and they'll attack a society. Al shurat shav, for false swearing falsely. Shav is as a lie, it's false. Meaning people swear on something falsely, or they swear they're going to do something and they cannot keep their commitment. V'al chilul Hashem, in addition to, it comes because of desecrating God's name. Galut, exile, ba'al olam, comes to the world. Al ovdei avodah zarah, for worshiping false gods. V'al gilui arayot, for sexual immorality. V'al shvichut damim, for murder, for committing murder and wantonless death. V'al hashmatat haaretz, and for literally, shmatat haaretz means abandoning or leaving the land, which that refers to halachot of Shemitah, when we're supposed to leave the land alone and not work it. And if we work the land, if those laws aren't fulfilled, that's another source of galut. The commentators explain there the midah k'neged midah is somewhat obvious, that if we are not treating the land correctly, right, we won't leave it alone when it's supposed to be left alone, so it will cause us to leave it alone by us having to be sent into exile. The Mishnah continues, Ba'arba'a prakim hadever mitrabeh. 4 times in the year, the pestilence, this epidemic plague, became intensified. It became many. It became much greater. Baravi'it, okay, in the 4th year of the Shemitah cycle. The Shemitah cycle again is 7 years. So in the 4th year of the cycle, Uvashvi'it, in the 7th year of the cycle, Uvimotza Shvi'it, at the end of the seventh, right, Motzei, when it's leaving at the end of the seventh year, u'v'motzei hachag shebechol shana v'shana, and at the end of the Chag HaSukkot of each year. And the Mishnah explains why these specific times. Baravi'it, in the fourth year, mibnei ma'aser ani shebashlishit, because of the ma'aser ani that was supposed to have been given in the third year. A little background for this. We spoke before about how there are different levels of obligation, different types of obligations that a person has to give from their fields, from the produce. There's Shuma, you have to give to a Kohen. Ma'aser has to be given, Ma'aser Rishon, has to be given to a Levi. And then there's Ma'aser Sheni or Ma'aser Ani. On the first and second and fourth and fifth years of the cycle, a person has to separate Ma'aser Sheni and bring it to Yerushalayim, a tenth, and bring it to Yerushalayim and eat it in Yerushalayim. On the third and the sixth year in the cycle, instead of giving Ma'aser Sheni, meaning separating and eating in Yerushalayim, a person has to give that amount to poor people, to an Ani. And so it's called Ma'aser Ani. So Ma'aser Ani Shebash Lishit means that if people did not give Ma'aser to the Aniyim, they didn't give it to the poor people in the third year, so the punishment came in the fourth year. And so too, Bashavi'it, in the seventh year the punishment came. Why? Ma'aser Ani Shebash Lishit, because of the Ma'aser Ani of the sixth year, meaning that people did not give it, and so the punishment came in the seventh year after their opportunity was completed. Uvimotza'ei Shvi'it, and at the end of the seventh year, Mibnei Perot Shvi'it, that became because of the fruits of Shvi'it, again referring to the violation. Fruit have certain halachot. Fruit that are grown during the Shemitah year have special halachot, and if those aren't observed correctly, so the punishment would be given at the end of the year, after the final opportunity to fulfill those obligations had been completed. And finally, Uvemotza'ei Hachag, at the end of Chag HaSukkot, Shebechol Shana V'Shana, at the end of every year, Mibnei Gezel Matnot Aniyim, because of stealing of the gifts of Aniyim. This refers to, Matnot Aniyim refers to gifts, obligations that we have to give to poor people. So, for example, when a person is collecting their produce from their field, we know there's mitzvot of leket, shechacha, and peah, that a person has to leave over certain things for poor people. So peah, a corner of the field, the corners have to be left for the poor people. Leket is what's collected, has to be left over if things while you're collecting, things fall out, that has to be left over for the aniyim, what falls out, so a certain amount of it. And shechacha refers to that which is forgotten, things which are forgotten. A certain amount of that has to be left for poor people. These are things which are considered gifts to Aniyim. We let the Aniyim have them. And Gezel Matnot Aniyim means people who did not, they took it away, they did not let the Aniyim have it. Up until Sukkot was basically the agricultural cycle, was the year, right? You had Pesach, is when Ha'aviv, and in Shavuot we had the Katsir, you had the harvesting, and then in Sukkot is when Chag HaAsif, we bring it inside. That's the end of the collection process of the produce. So up until that point, a person could have done these mitzvot, and so it's at this point when the opportunity to fulfill them is complete that the punishment will come for those who have not fulfilled those obligations.